it well. You took a man, Moses, and gave him a rod in his hand. He took the rod in his hand, strutted forth and walked on dry land. If you can use anything, Lord, you can use me. Use me, Jesus, use me.
Lord, you can use me.
That's our prayer today.
Use anything, Lord, you can use me.
Lord, take these hands and my feet, touch my heart.
Lord, speak through me. If you can use anything, Lord, you can use me.
I remember a story, I remember it well. You took a shepherd boy, David, with a sling in his hand. He took a rock with a sling in his hand. He flung that rock and the giant fell dead. If you can use anything, Lord, you can use me. Take my hands and my feet, touch my heart. Speak through me, Lord.
Anything, Lord, you can
Use me, Jesus. Use me for your glory.
use anything, Lord, you can use me.
Lord, take these hands,
Lord, and my feet,
touch my heart.
speak through me. If you can use anything, Lord, you can use me.
I want to be your surrendered vessel, Lord.
Anything, Lord, you can use me.
Lord, use me, Jesus.
Anything, Lord, you can use me.
Take my hands,
Lord, and my feet,
touch my heart.
speak through me. If you can use anything, Lord, you can use me.
Anytime, anywhere, you can use me, Lord.
Use anything, Lord, you can use
It doesn't matter how big or how small, you can use me, Lord. You can use me.
A reading from the Gospel of Mark. Hear what God's Spirit is saying to you. As soon as it was morning, the chief priests held a consultation with the elders and scribes and the whole council. They bound Jesus, led him away, and handed him over to Pilate. Pilate asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" He answered him, "You say so." Then the chief priests accused him of many things. Pilate asked him again, "Have you no answer? See how many charges they bring against you." But Jesus made no further reply, so that Pilate was amazed. Now at the festival, he used to release a prisoner for them, anyone for whom they asked. Now a man called Barabbas was in prison with the rebels who had committed murder during the insurrection. So the crowd came and began to ask Pilate to do for them according to his custom. Then he answered them, "Do you want me to release for you the king of the Jews?" For he realized that it was out of jealousy that the chief priests had handed him over. But the chief priests stirred up the crowd to have him release Barabbas for them instead. Pilate spoke to them again. "Then what do you wish me to do with the man you call the king of the Jews?" They shouted back, "Crucify him." Pilate asked them, "Why? What evil has he done?" But they shouted all the more, "Crucify him." So Pilate, wishing to satisfy the crowd, released Barabbas for them, and after flogging Jesus, he handed him over to be crucified. Here ends the reading of the words that give us insight on God. May God grant to us wisdom and courage for interpretation.
Well, friends, how you doing? Yeah? It's been a bit of a week, hasn't it? Been an emotional week for you all? It's been a heavy week for you all? Some of you feel like you're in mourning today? Yeah? I know that the election is something that many of us have been holding as a heavy weight for weeks and months, and that many of you are feeling like you're in a vulnerable space, that many of us here in the congregation come from marginalized communities, perhaps because of sexual orientation or gender identity, perhaps because of race or ethnicity, perhaps because of socioeconomic status, perhaps because you're someone who can get pregnant, perhaps because you're a woman and you're afraid that you might not have control over your body, perhaps it's multiple of those things, or even if you are a straight cisgender white guy like me, who knows that fascism affects everybody, that totalitarian regimes affect absolutely everyone. I was sitting at dinner a week and a half ago or so with a friend of mine who is Pakistani and was educated in the United States, and he said, you know, there used to be a time where the world community would look to the United States for moral leadership. I mean, we've always done things that were immoral, don't get me wrong, but he said there were times when we would look to the United States for moral leadership, and he said those times are gone. The United States doesn't have moral authority. And we were discussing the rise of far-right extremism all over the world. And the thing about far-right extremism rising in the United States is that it emboldens far-right extremists all over the world. And make no mistake, this is far-right extremism. This is not politics as usual. There was once a time where people had differences of opinion about how to lift up the common good. The common good was a value. I'm not sure that that's the case anymore. I'm not sure that everyone has the common good at heart. And that's terrifying. It's terrifying. And I know that. I don't think there's any harm in saying this. I think it is what needs to be said because democracy is at stake here. Democracy is tenuous. Democracy has to be well cared for. And democracy is in danger because the last time the now president-elect was in power, he almost did not give it up and encouraged supporters to lead an insurrection against the U.S. Capitol. That is not politics as usual. And that is why people are terrified because of this. Because we recognize that the United States, as we have known it, may not be in existence on the other side of this presidency. Am I right? I don't think I'm exaggerating here. And it is terrifying. I was thinking about that this week, and I was reminded of the story that we just heard from the Gospels. And this is an interesting story, the story of Jesus' trial. And it's interesting because this one is in all four of the Gospels. And that doesn't always happen. A lot of times things are in 3 of the Gospels, the Synoptic Gospels, Mark, Matthew, and Luke, and not in John, or they're in John, not the other. But this story about Jesus' trial is in all of them, and the same thing happens in all 4 accounts. Pilate is presiding over the trial, and it comes time for him to release a prisoner. And he's got Jesus there, and he's got Barabbas, who is a part of the insurrectionists that had killed people. And he says, okay, folks, who do you want? You want Jesus to be released, or do you want Barabbas? And the crowd calls out, give us the criminal. Give us Barabbas. And it was hard on Tuesday not to hear that, not to hear the majority of people who voted saying, give us Barabbas. Give us the felon. That's who we want. You know, I think one of the reasons that we're in the state that we're in the United States is because of false religiosity, a manipulation of the Christian tradition that is inauthentic to the teachings of Jesus Christ. So much of American Christianity has become about believing the right thing about Jesus. Just believing the right thing. And people have been so convinced that their particular belief is the only right belief that they want to legislate that for everybody. It's often built on this false notion that the United States has always been a Christian nation, and it's just not true. Most of the founding fathers were deists, and they recognized that theocracies are incredibly dangerous. That what makes a democracy work is freedom. Freedom of belief, freedom of life, freedom of values. Christianity is not primarily about believing the right thing. Christianity at its core is about behaving in the way that Jesus taught us, enacting the values that Jesus showed us in his life. And being a Christian means living our lives in that way. You can't legislate people into being Christians, nor should we try. But it seems like there is a desire to make people into a certain brand of American Christianity, where the government has control of your bodies, where forced prayer in school is a value, where 10 Commandments displayed in public spaces is a value, and it is contrary to the teachings of Jesus. You know, we see this warning against false religiosity over and over again in the Bible. I think about the prophets. I think about people like Amos, who goes out and decries people who are fasting in public and giving up all these burnt offerings. They have all the outward signs of being religious, and yet in the book of Amos, God says, I find your burnt offerings offensive. Your fasting, I don't want. Is not this the fast that I choose? To care for the needy. That's what I want, God says. I think about Jonah going to Nineveh and going around to the people of Nineveh and saying, repent and care for those who are in need. I think about Micah, who says, you know, O mortal, what is good. What does the Lord require of you? To do justice, to love kindness, to walk humbly with your God. I also think about stories like the story of Sodom, which is often misinterpreted to be about sexual orientation, and it's not. In that story, there's a group of travelers who come to Sodom, and they are taken in by a host. And in that culture, it was the host's job to protect people who were in need. And the whole community of Sodom comes out. Not just the men, the whole community, all the people, the text says, come out, and they want to assault the people who are there, the guests. And the host refuses to let that happen. And the Bible outright tells us what the sin of Sodom is. It says it clear as day in the book of Ezekiel. It says, "Is not this the sin of your sister Sodom, that she failed to take care of those in need, to lift up the poor?" The Bible tells us over and over again, it is not outward religiosity. It's not believing the right things. It is doing the right things. It is caring for those who are in need that make us followers of God that we know through Jesus. The way that we follow God is by making this world a better place in which to live. But I've got hope. I've got hope that comes from my faith. Because Jesus, he was living in this world where his people were oppressed. They were living under this Roman occupation. And the thing that got Jesus killed was proclaiming a vision for a hopeful future, the reign of God. What got Jesus killed was saying, we can create a world that isn't like this one. If we value each other, if we see every person as a child of God, if we welcome the stranger, if we work for a just economy, if we can get to work creating a world like that, we can make God's love manifest in this world. And the biblical text is all about that at its heart. It's about trying to bring that vision to fruition. And we as human beings, we really struggle with that. It's hard, but that is our call. And so I'm hopeful because of places like University Christian Church, because our call remains the same. Our call continues to be working for a better world. And so I think about the work that we are getting ready to do at the border with Pastor Diego joining us. We've got some exciting border work that is coming up that I can't wait to tell you about. We get to live deeper into our call as a boldly open and affirming community that declares that every single person is a person that is a child of God with inherent worth and dignity. We, through our partnerships with organizations like Jubilee USA, get to work for a just economy, not just here in the United States, but all around the world. We, through organizations like Week of Compassion, get to be out in the world helping those who are the most in need. What I'm saying is that at University Christian Church, as people of faith, what we continue to do is what we have always done. What we continue to do is hope. What we continue to do is love. What we continue to do is be compassionate and kind in the world, because when we do that, in small and in large ways, we transform this world. And that is the call of the prophets. That is the call of Jesus. That is the call of the biblical text. That is the call of our faith to transform this world through our actions, through simple acts of kindness. We can't change the system, folks. But what we can do is be kind to each other interpersonally. What we can do is care about other people. What we can do is listen to each other. What we can do is be there for each other in the midst of pain and struggle. And when we do that, even in small ways, we envision a better world. You see? We create a better world. It is the small things that can create a big difference. When we gather as church, the point isn't just to feel good while we're here. I hope that happens. I hope you like coming here. I hope you feel good when you're here and when you leave. It's not just to give you a shot of hope to get through the week, although I hope that happens too. But what we're doing here is deeply theological. Jesus talked about the reign of God on earth. And what we're supposed to be doing when we come here is embodying that. getting a little slice of heaven, if you will. Practicing treating each other with respect. Practicing being in community together. Practicing sitting down and sharing a meal together, because when we do that in large and small ways, we then carry that with us out in the world. So friends, what do now? You stick together and you hope. We stick together and we hope and we work and we love, because that is the call of Christ. To love, to get out in the world and be kind to one another. May it be so. Amen.